Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From London, Dario Betti, MEF CEO.
Hello and welcome again to our podcast, Perspectives, the podcast of the Mobile Ecosystem Forum that looks at the view from some of the people out there that are shaping what we see, we do, what we enjoy on the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. And I'm very happy to welcome, I should say, a veteran. It doesn't look like a veteran, but he's been there, been for a long time. It's Jack Philbin, the CEO and co-founder of Vibes. So, Jack, welcome to Perspectives.
Thanks, Dario. Appreciate the invite.
It's always a pleasure. And so, with you, let's start. I'm asking the first question, the perspective. It put me a bit of a pain on how to define what you have done in the last 25 years because there's so much of it. Is it a perspective I should ask on mobile engagement or mobile marketing or what customers do, customer retention, customer activity and loyalty? So almost the first question is, what do you do? First of all, what do you do at Vibes?
Yeah, good question. My family ask the same thing quite often. Wait, what is it that you do? And so you mentioned mobile engagement, mobile marketing, really this broader term today of customer experience. This is the most powerful thing that consumers hold on their person all the time. And so how are marketers and brands engaging with individuals via this device, right? And so that happens in a lot of different ways. Mobile marketing really started its roots in messaging. And so the DNA of Vibes is really a messaging business. We've got a lot of differentiators in that space. But messaging is just a conduit into these other channels, right? And you think of email as a jump off point. You link to a site to try and sell something. And so messaging getting more and more traction every year, been around for a long time, but the efficacy and the efficiency is pretty amazing. I think we'll get into some of that. And so, you can think of Vibes as a SaaS platform, orchestration management, right? Campaign management for your messaging, your text messaging, your push notifications, and then mobile wallet. And we can talk a little bit about what I mean by mobile wallet. So just orchestrating that level, orchestrating at a customer level, across these channels. And so that is the broader term of mobile engagement is meant to be more than just an SMS message.
So let's look at the market, the wide market. Do you think that we are the beginning of something new, or is it maturity of a business? What's happening? What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, no, I actually think, there's been a lot of S-curves along the way in this space, right? Super dynamic market that it's been fun to be a part of for so long. I do feel like we're at the cusp of something new, both with AI and then this pretty massive announcement that Apple's going to enable RCS. And so the RCS revolution, which we've been waiting for over a decade, is more real. Like there's visibility around that corner. So it's super exciting. I can talk to you about some of the AI models that we actually have in market that customers are using. And so we've had data scientists at Vibes for 4 or 5 years running models on our data, right? We've been routing messages in the US for 20 years as one of the tier one aggregators in the United States. That's a huge data set to run models against and sort of really try and find that fine-tuned, right, like the proverbial right message to the right person at the right time. Now it's really right person, right message, right time, right channel, right location. And so AI enables a lot of this targeting at, super scale to an individual level. And that's exciting. That's sort of like a thesis that we've had for a long time. And I think it's one of these aspirational goals that, you probably never achieve, but it's really good for a business to have that North Star and try and get more efficient for customers, like higher conversion, more sales, and make it a more effective and more efficient media medium in terms of dollars being spent and ROI on those dollars.
Well, you mentioned AI. No surprise. I was going to ask you about that because that seems really to reshape this business. Some
Yeah.
people are afraid that AI is going to be potentially a tool to make lots of messages and create more spam because everything is available now. So much can be created. But you say, no, careful. This is a question of getting the right target, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're focusing on. Can you give me a couple of examples for some people that might be outside of a traditional SMS and messaging? What
Yeah.
are we talking about?
Yeah, sure. Just to quell your fear as well, AI is going to be used for the efficiency and the better customization, better customer experience. It's also going to be used to protect against the spam. So AI might be used to generate more messaging, but AI is going to be used to detect the bad actors and sort of keep the channel clean. We don't want what has happened to email to happen to mobile messaging. And, I don't think it will. I think the carriers, at least in the United States, have done a very good job protecting the ecosystem, coming down really hard on the bad actors. And at least at Vibes, in our portion, we focus on enterprise. We focus on the high quality. We don't want to route the lowbrow use cases. And so I think that's important. And so everybody, the whole, rising tide raises all boats. Everybody's got to have sort of an oar in the water on making sure that we keep the channel clean and therefore effective. And so, some of the models, just jumping into how we're using AI, we've been doing targeting for a long time, but AI just unlocks the ability, like if you have a database of say, 5 million people and you're sending that message, imagine in the perfect world, you're sending 5 million unique messages, right? And those are being sent at the exact time of day that you're most likely to engage with the brand. And the message based on your historic message engagement, based on your historic profile at that brand, like what you like to purchase, what your preferences are. It's giving you, Dario gets a different message than Jack because we have different different behaviors, different interests, and different likelihood of engaging. And so sometimes the data tells a better story than the marketer has in terms of strategy. And one of my favorite examples was a children's clothing brand where we were sending the messages experimenting with between 10 and noon, and then these segments of daytime or send time being like noon to 1 or 1 to 3. And the data came back and actually said that we should send the messages for these few specific segments for this brand in the evening, after 6 or even 7 p.m. Right? You don't want to send messages, or can't send messages in many states after 8 p.m. And so flirting with that late time. And we thought, okay, that's interesting. The model is telling us to do that. Let's just follow what the data says. And there was a 13% increase in click conversion. And so that was pretty remarkable. And what we realized when talking to the heads of marketing for that individual brand, they're like, you know what, this makes sense. These are, infants, small children, they get put down to sleep. Then, the mom's been carrying a baby or, just being super busy. My wife, I've got 4 wonderful daughters, but it is, it's very time consuming, very busy being a parent, whether it's 1 or 4. And so, if that kid goes down to sleep, then mom's got her free time and she's on and she's more in the moment clicking and then purchasing. And so we thought that was pretty remarkable. And that was one of the best examples of the data said something very different than what we were thinking. We engage a lot on the strategic side, sort of like helping guide, giving our game plans and our playbooks to our customers. And so that was very different than what we were suggesting, and is different than what the marketer wanted to do themselves. And so I always think that's just that's a great example of the data being the debate, the data being correct, the data being right.
Well, let me then turn around and ask something completely different, because today we're talking about AI and optimizations of these personalizations, these models, etc. But in 1998, when you co-founded Vibes, what did you think? Why did you believe that you had to build a company in the mobile engagement area?
Well, I thought we'd be doing what we're doing now, right? I didn't think it would take 25 years, that's for sure. When I think back at the beginning of Vibes, I think I'm actually pretty proud of the thesis is what it holds today, right? We saw wireless would intersect with marketing, right? And we want to sort of be in that space. And when I grew up, my mom actually worked for AT&T, selling landlines and frame relay and T1s and ISDN lines, and I saw pagers getting smaller. I saw cell phones getting smaller. Like literally, the cell phone was in a bag in the trunk of the car before it was a car phone. And so, just seeing that market sort of begin to mature. A lot of headlines in the papers as I started to read the business section. And so I was like, this is going to be an industry that's going to have a ton of innovation and last for a long time. And so I think that has held true. It's been super exciting. There's been lots of innovation over time. But it was a pretty different market back in '98 for sure.
So if you have to play back that experience, what took you here as Vibes, what has been some of those difficult or good moments in the last 25 years? A quarter of a century. It is well done. Remarkable milestone for Vibes. And a remarkable story. You've seen the beginning of something very new. Any of that sticks to your mind?
Well, I think like I said a little bit earlier, like our vision is sort of coming to fruition. It's the reality. I think we tell the famous story of sending the first mobile coupon in the U.S. for Pizza Hut in '99, and there was no SMS in '99, cross carrier at least, and so we did that on pagers, right? Alphanumeric pagers, and could send words. And so, we wrote some software to send messages to these pagers. That's essentially an SMS, right? Like a pager is just inside a cell phone, which we realized pretty early on. But with the Pizza Hut story, we were sending out a coupon code FS. I'll never forget it. FS actually corresponded to a button that they had on the cash registers at Pizza Hut nationally. Okay. And so we would do these regional tests, and it wasn't one-to-one attribution, right? What we would see is how many times was the FS button clicked on these certain days in this region when we were sending a message to the pagers in those regions. And man, we saw a high correlation, right? You send out the message, and then there's a lot of FS redemptions. And so we knew I think it was just pretty obvious that if you're going to send something to somebody's person, no matter where they are, you're going to get higher redemption than if it's sitting in in a letter or a direct mail piece that's sent to their house, or if it's sent, even in an email. Now you got huge spam issues with junk folders with email, but email wasn't even a huge thought back then. So I think it was super early for what we were doing, but it was the beginning of the thinking around that personalization at scale, right? And all the targeting and all the, efficiency, how you can make that message sort of perfect for the receiver. So, we've been at this and, had an engineering team on this for, a very long time. And I think, my job's keep us out in front of the market. And we've done that in many ways. Like how is messaging integrating with your app? How is messaging integrating with your payment experience, your customer experience, and making this sort of omni-channel better. Sometimes people think, mobile's just its own channel. Well, no, it's an enabler, almost like an insurance policy against all the rest of the media dollars and marketing and CRM and loyalty dollars that you're spending. So we've seen a lot of step function changes over time. Everybody, I've the biggest being, the iPhone 2007. But a lot of other ones, I think when I think about the body of work over the time and how things have changed, the leaps from like a 2G to a 3G and a 3G to 4G and now 4G to 5G, which we're sort of currently in the middle of. You don't stop to appreciate just the step function change that the network speeds and the handset improvements enable, but they enable brand new business models and just unlock of huge engagement potential. And so it's been really fun to be a part of a lot of that.
You say it's been very fun. 25 years. Are you getting bored, or there is still lots of happening that keeps you engaged? Well, tell me.
No.
Personally.
No, I mean, look, there's so much upside in this space, and I think marketers sort of continue to advance their desire and how they're applying what they want to learn to engage with a consumer on the phone. I mean, technically, there's a lot of things that are possible that still haven't reached adoption that I think should be the case, and sometimes it just takes market forces to sort of make those happen. You think about the QR code, like it sat for a long time, and sort of like everybody made fun of it. No one will scan that. You needed a separate scanning app, right? And then basically the Google and Apple make the camera, enable the native scanning of the QR code in the camera. And then COVID hits, and every menu at every restaurant puts a QR code. And so suddenly, you have adoption and people using, a QR code. And so there's unlocks like that will happen for, Wallet. We have an incredible ability to drive in-store foot traffic, right? And have that closed loop attribution in the physical world. Everybody has sort of their e-com funnel metrics, and we're going to get them to click and then sort of like optimize that flow to purchase. A lot of A/B testing on the sites, but in the physical world, how are you getting attribution to know what campaign drove them in and was effective? And so we do a lot with our customers with mobile wallet, putting that coupon or putting that loyalty card, in the Google Wallet, in the Apple Wallet, getting that scan or tap in store and having that closed loop attribution. And so that's a lot of what we've been waiting for. And so it's just the constant push of what we see as so obvious, and enrolling the market and enrolling the marketers in what's possible. So, and then there's just competitive dynamics and structural, strategic advantage in the space that keep this super compelling and super dynamic as a market to be in. So I'm still having fun.
So you're still having lots of fun. And what about you personally? Have you grown in the last 25 years as a manager, as an owner? What would you say is different from Jack in 1998 to today, 2024?
Yeah, I mean, a lot is different. I mean, you're a different person when you're managing when it's two guys in a room versus when you're 10 people or 50 people or over 100 people. And so I think you gotta learn to scale with the business. I built out an executive team to, do the things that I didn't want to do or, couldn't do, frankly. I got my MBA at Kellogg. That was sort of a hedge against the business at one point. I was like, you know what? Like this is taking a while. Let's figure out what else, what else is possible. So I think my point is I've certainly grown because you're a different person when you're bootstrapping versus when you're, managing hundreds of customers and just hundreds of people. And so, the business has changed significantly. I think that I've sort of adapted, and things are different. We had no institutional investors, so not a lot of people know this, but when we started Vibe in '98, we ran the business on revenue and sort of creativity and just getting customers for 10 years. So we didn't raise any institutional capital for 10 years. Just built a real business, which in this day and age is sort of unheard of. Everybody's always about what round are you on, and who are your investors as lead questions. And I'm always like, let's talk about customers and profit and running a real business.
If I may ask you, that's quite unique in the SMS mobile engagement world, but we've seen quite a few companies that have grown up on their profitability. They've been able to reinvest themselves. Do you think if things are changing? Some of the players of their Vibes themselves, you're now well established in a big company as they are. You mentioned that things at the corporate level are also changing. Do you see some of that affecting you?
Well, I think the the economy goes in cycles. And so I think answering that question for right now in sort of like a 3-year window you could have different answers quite often, like when you think about in terms of 20 plus years. I think, you've been in this space a long time. I think the graveyard is sort of vast and wide. There's been a ton of companies that have come into this space and told a big story and waved their hands super high and super wide, and then, and then they're gone. So there's a lot of, I don't know. I think that there's a lot to be said for, we've been steady. We've always sort of made what I think are decisions true to our core values. Are we going to chase the sketchy revenue, or do we just want to do what's best for us for the long term? And we always sort of stick to the latter, and try not to look at the fad unless we think it's a strategy that's structurally really interesting for structural advantage, and something that has a big TAM and is worth going after. So there's been a lot of players who come in. Everybody says that they can do messaging. You have a lot of people, if there's folks watching this podcast who really understand the space. I mean, there's a lot of people who come in and say, oh yeah, we can route messages, we're directly connected. And that's just not true. And so having that structural advantage has been a big advantage and a big deal. But a lot of players in the space, a lot of market and customer knowledge needs to catch up with reality, right? And not just what a few companies might be saying as their sales pitch.
And for some of those people that are not into some of the details of messaging, when you refer direct connections, if I'm not mistaken, that you connecting directly to a mobile operator. So is that correct? Yeah. So you're one of a few companies that have got this channel that goes straight in to the mobile operator.
Yeah, exactly. It's the murky underbelly of messaging is actually quite important because there's 4 certified tier 1 aggregators in the US. Everybody else is going through one or a combination of those 4. And so that's just a structural advantage in terms of, it's not just price, right? It's reliability, it's throughput, it's, onboarding speed, and like how quickly are you turning around your audits? What delivery receipt capabilities do you have? And so, it's not just having the connection, it's being able to manage it at scale and, perform against it from a, service level offering as well.
Okay, let me play a little game with you. And it is a game. Sure. Because, imagine the next 25 years, that probably a bit too large, but you just mentioned 3 topics, which you say, not the fads, but you mentioned AI.
Sure.
You mentioned RCS, and you've also mentioned wallet. Now, if you had to pick within these 3, what's going to be the big element, at least for the next 5 years? What would you say that is going to reshape a bit this industry?
Of those 3, or
yeah. Or you can expand it if you want.
See, the thing is, I think they work together, right?
They all.
I think an AI is a layer on top of whatever, technically innovative companies want to do. It's an enhancement to whatever engagement in whatever channel, right? So I think AI is almost channel agnostic and experience agnostic. It's just how are you leveraging it to get better results and more efficient, right? Maybe you can accomplish a lot more. Maybe a lot more of this is automated, so the customer has to do less, right? Even if you have a self-serve platform, maybe like everything is just optimized and it's dynamically optimized so that the customers are just coming in and hitting yes, like I will follow these recommendations. That's what we're working on. That's super exciting. So I think if I had to choose a winner and the thing that could have the biggest impact, I would say AI, and that's sort of an easy answer. I think the market is the rage of the buzzword is pretty high right now, and the hype. But we've got before OpenAI even launched, we had data scientists running models on machine learning, real AI, and so I think we're out ahead of that at Vibes personally. So I think it's going to it's going to sort of bring in a whole new, just a whole new chapter to, this dynamic market. And I talked earlier about all these S curves. That's certainly one. And then RCS, we've been sort of waiting. It's funny, like in mobile, whatever it was 10 years ago now, it was like, is this the year of mobile? Is this the year of mobile? And it was like this 5 to 6 year span where everybody was saying it's the year of mobile. And then all of a sudden it was clearly in the rearview mirror. And so, I don't know if 24 is the year of RCS, but we see this change happening, right? Like not everyone's going to have your app if you can just order something, via text and have that quick engagement and that quick conversation. I think messaging will certainly eat into apps. We view messaging as complementary to an app now, not competitive. We actually drive tons of app downloads with our programs. But in 5 years, maybe you have like 10 apps on your phone. Gartner came out with something a while back, which was, people are using 5 apps regularly every month. That's about it. And so that there's like the glut on the phone that's just taking up your data. Apple's actually started to delete, apps that you're not using in the background. And so I think there'll be this natural consolidation to fewer apps, but that engagement, right? That instant conversation, when you're starting to see a lot more of it from both like business to person, which we call A to P, but also just B2B use cases, right? When you think about I think the obvious ones are like shipping notifications and appointment reminders, but think about like educational nurturing, or just information sharing, communication with your field reps. Like if you want that message to get there, to get to your employee right away, you need to send them an SMS because the email is going to get lost in their, if they're out and they're on sales calls and, they're not sitting there checking email all the time, that inbox just builds up naturally. And so I think SMS, as we've seen, cuts through the clutter. And so there's so many use cases just for obviously business to consumer, and then, business to business as well.
Now, you mentioned S curves before. I don't know if this is an S curves, but I'd like to go back to some of your life and career. Mm-hmm. You were part of the MMA, the Mobile Marketing Association, still existing, but you were the chairman of the USA chapter.
Yeah.
What do you think it was? Part of a global board as well. But what was the Marketing Association of those time? Did we have cleared up a bit in mobile? Are things now more mature? Are we ready to use this channel in its full power, or is still more work to be done?
Yeah, well, there's always more work to be done with, more innovation that sort of changes the landscape. I think early on, the MMA, at Vibes, we helped put together the consumer best practices and bylaws for messaging, which really put into place the guardrails for the ecosystem. Carriers adopted that. There's been really good enforcement, which, annoys and irritates a lot of players, excuse me, in the industry, but it's net been really positive for the space. And there's a lot more work to do. My team has sort of testified on behalf of the industry in front of the FCC on multiple occasions. So we're always there to help the government, understand our space, which is a tall task, right? So lots of times messaging gets sort of just bundled into these other sort of legislative initiatives. And so I think going back to the MMA, keeping loyalty and CRM and engagement top of mind amongst CMOs who generally are focused on the ad budget, right? The chief marketing officer is often really the chief advertising officer because their focus is like the majority of their spend is this ad budget. How am I allocating that? And how am I making that more efficient? And that's why ad tech took off. And so I've been ringing the bell of like, hey, there's more than just a banner ad. There's true engagement, which is, I think, far more impactful, but it doesn't have the scale of the ad tech, of the ad dollars. But we've seen so much change. There were all sorts of ad tech companies, and then boom, that's just really consolidated down to the major tech players of Facebook, Meta, and Google, and now Amazon, massive advertising, market cap. So
more of a S curves a play there, more of those changes. Who knows what's going to happen next? As we keep on saying, this is a very fluid market in any case. Well, it turns out that we have used almost the full 29, 30 minutes as it goes there. Well, I'm going to use a bit more, being greedy as I am, and ask you your final words on this market. If you were today to talk to somebody wanting to work in this market, some of your wisdom, what would you tell them? Founding a company, starting mobile and marketing, wallets, etc. What would you tell them?
Well, I guess it depends who the audience is. I think for a marketer that might be a little timid or having trepidation about sort of jumping in, but hey, what's this RCS thing? The best way to be really prepared for a messaging revolution that's super dynamic and more rich, which we think an RCS will bring, is be in the messaging space, right? Like SMS and building that database and nurturing it, curating it. That's the best, like you just flip a switch once RCS is enabled. And if you're waiting until there's RCS, penetration from a phones capable in the United States standpoint, you're just putting off your starting point, right? And so you're delaying what could be, great momentum. And so I think we focus on ROI and results for our customers. And so, the earlier you can sort of jump in as a marketer, the more experience you're going to have, the earlier you're going to start to sort of fine tune your program and figure out what works for you. Rarely do you find that mobile engagement doesn't work and doesn't provide a huge benefit for a company. And so, look, we find customers are in sort of different levels of maturity in terms of like really sophisticated, like the AI experimenters that I talked about earlier. And then, it's rare to find someone who hasn't started anything these days, but there are big budget marketers that are doing very rudimentary things that need to sort of push their comfort zone and push the envelope. And so from that point, I think it's like pick a partner that you really trust and get going, and then optimize and refine, right?
So don't lose the opportunity. Get something going and try to do it well as well. Well, I think that's all that we have time for today. But I think, I don't want to say we're going to wait another 25 years in the history of Vibes. We will celebrate it much earlier on, but it looks like there's plenty happening. So we will come back and talk to Jack soon. For today, Jack Philbin, a big thank you. Thanks for being here. And thanks to all of the Vibes team for bringing up more insight of what's happening out there in the world of mobile engagement.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dario. And thanks to the MEF and all that you do for the industry. It's a big deal and much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.